For many parents of newborns, the decision of which diaper to use is often cast as an either-or proposition, disposable or cloth. But what if I told you there was a third choice, one that nearly half the world uses? For Western cultures, this process of mostly diaper-free infancy has been given the name Elimination Communication, and it starts the process of teaching your kids to use the toilet from the time they are born. I'm Elizabeth Stevens, and today we're talking all about Elimination Communication.
Faster than a speeding toddler.
Sit still for just a minute.
Can soothe boo-boos with a gentle kiss.
Would you get down from there?
Able to clean poopy bottoms in a single swipe.
Oh, what did you eat?
Turning frazzled mommies and daddies into procreators of peace and harmony.
Ah, quit touching me.
It's Parent Savers, empowering new parents everywhere.
Welcome everybody to Parent Savers. Once again, we're broadcasting from the Birth Education Center of San Diego. Such a lovely place. Thanks so much to them for letting us use it. Parent Savers is your weekly online on-the-go support group for parents of newborns, infants, and toddlers. I'm your host, John Ariel. Thanks again to all our loyal listeners who joined the Parent Savers Club. Our subscribers get all our archived episodes, bonus content after each new show, plus special giveaways and discounts. So you can also subscribe to our monthly Parent Savers newsletter for free for a chance to win a membership to our club each month. Another way for you to stay connected is by downloading our free Parent Savers app, available in the Android and iTunes marketplace. It's free to download, and then every week when a new episode is published, you will get notifications. You can also download Boob Group app as well as a Preggy Pals app. I think you guys all know by now, but my name's John, and I have 3 boys, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And so I'm also joined here in the studio by a couple of other panelists.
Hey everyone, I'm Sunny Galt, and I am the host of Parent Saver's sister show, Preggy Pals, which is all about pregnancy. I am pregnant right now with our 3rd. We don't know when we're having it. We're due in December. And I also have 2 little boys at home, an almost 3-year-old and a little boy that just turned 1. So it's going to be a full house.
And I'm Lori Babb, and I am a mother of 2 boys, 2.5 and 5. And I'm also a small business owner in San Diego.
That's great. Well, from the panelist perspective, we've got the boys covered.
Yes, we
But
do.
Elizabeth, how about you? What?
I'm the mother of 4 children. I have a son who's 16, and then I have 3 girls that are 9, 7, and 6, and they're 18 months apart.
Wow. You were busy for a while.
I was very busy.
I probably still are.
Yeah, she still is. It's just different kind of busy,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Here's a question from one of our listeners. Hattie from New Mexico asks us, "Hi, I'm a first-time mom with a 1-week-old newborn. Is it possible for an infant this young to develop diaper rash? Even if I use ointment with every change to prevent diaper rash, what should I do if my daughter continues to get diaper rash?"
Hello, Hattie. This is Dr. Tara Van Vliet. Yes, it is definitely possible for your newborn to have a diaper rash in the first week. It's often the time they get the most diaper rashes. Their newborn skin is super sensitive, and everything from the diaper, the cream, the wipes, and even their own urine can irritate the skin to the point of seeming like a burn. As they get older, their skin becomes much less sensitive, and diaper rash happens less often. So keep the skin clean and dry. Change the diaper often, and don't rub a lot with those wipes. It's hard with the thick black meconium at the beginning, but by now it should be easy to gently wipe off the stool. Consider using just a soft cloth with water instead of a wipe, or use hypoallergenic wipes with aloe. You can use aloe creams, zinc creams like Desitin, or vitamin creams like A&D. They all help as a barrier between the wetness and the skin. If you use a zinc cream, use the original ones, not the creamies. One favorite where I trained was called Happy Heine, which was a mixture of a zinc cream, an antifungal woman's vaginal cream like Monistat, and Cortade anti-itch cream, which was hydrocortisone 1%, and it was the ointment, not the cream. And we mixed that up in equal parts and put it on at each diaper change, and it worked like a charm. If you continue having problems, then consider changing the diaper brand, even if they're cloth. I hope that helps.
Today's topic is elimination communication, and it's one that many of our listeners have requested. We actually had a specific request from a listener come through to our hotline.
Yeah, actually, Anne from Charlotte, North Carolina, gave us a call, and she left this message.
Hi there. This is Ann Banks calling from Charlotte, North Carolina. I am a dedicated listener to all of your different segments, the Preggy Pals, the Boob Group, and Parent Savers. I love the episodes that you guys have. Wanted to see if you guys could do an episode on any of your segments on elimination communication, also known as natural infant hygiene or infant potty training. This has kind of come into my purview recently, and it has been a really interesting journey for myself and my 5.5-month-old. Just kind of wanted to get the word out and also read a little bit more about it and hear a little bit more about it. So anyway, hope you have a great day, and thanks for listening to my message. Okay, bye.
Well, thank you, Anne. I love hearing listeners when they call because, sometimes we get emails and stuff like that. But I love that you called, Anne. That's fantastic. Thank you.
We've also seen a couple tweets about it, too. And I know in just talking to some people at like the Your Natural Baby Fair or around, it's something that a lot of people have asked me about. So I'm really excited to be joined by Elizabeth Stevens, who is a mom of 4. And she's gone through this with at least some of her kids, if not all of them. So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I've gone through it with at least 3 of them.
Well, so let's start. What's it? What is elimination communication?
Elimination communication is just basically from the time your children are little, taking them to the appropriate place to potty instead of waiting until they're older or old enough, or whatever that means, to traditionally potty train them.
Right. So certainly everything that, that I feel like I've learned or experienced as a dad is, kids aren't even ready for that until they're 3 or 4 years old.
Right.
So this is a fascinating idea, and one that I think is met with like some fears of like, oh my gosh, what a mess it's going to make. But
what a mess, what a headache. It's going to take more time. You're going to be swimming in poop and pee.
So tell me about your experience.
Well, I found out about it originally. My daughter was 6 weeks old, and my son, I didn't have any clue about it.
Yeah.
I was about 19 when I had my son, and I just did what, you find pamphlets from the doctor's office, and they say this is what's appropriate for this age, and, I had no idea. But what I did do with my son is I used to stick him on the toilet on the little potty insert because I didn't want him to be afraid of the toilet. And I thought, I heard all these things about, when you start potty training, they might be afraid of the toilet. So I thought, well, I'll just stick him on there so he's comfortable with it, and that way he won't ever be afraid of the toilet. I won't have that issue. But I didn't luck into catching any pee ever with him, so. So anyhow, I learned about elimination communication. I was online, probably a parenting website or something like that. Somebody was talking about, you can potty them from birth. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So I Googled searched, and I looked at everything I could find about it. And at that point, my daughter's about 9. There weren't all that many websites, but I did find one. And Lori Bouquet writes a book, and she had a website up, and so I looked at hers and I read everything that I could. Then the very next day I went out to Babies R Us and I bought a Baby Bjorn little potty, and I said, okay, this is the day I'm going to try it. So I waited until first thing in the morning, and I decided I was going to put out a big mat and I was going to leave her. She was 6 weeks old. So I figured I'd put a pad underneath and I was going to leave her naked and just observe her and see if she had any sort of signs that she needed to go. So I put her out I took a vinyl tablecloth so that the carpet was protected.
Right.
And then I put a baby diaper underneath her, just a cloth diaper. And I waited and I watched and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to give it a try. So I put her on the potty and I said, I cued her to go, which is psst, that's the sound that I used. And I said, go potty. And then she peed. And I was like, she? Oh my gosh, 6 weeks old. I held her up on my chest and I held underneath of her legs. And I just held her on top of the potty and I cued her to go and she went. And I was amazed. I was like, no way did she just do that. That didn't really amazing, just happen. Right? I seriously called everybody I knew. I can't believe this. She just peed in the potty.
Right. If Facebook had been around.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so then I'm like, all right, well, so I put her back down and I'm like, great, she's gone potty. She'll probably have to go again within the next hour, I'd say. But I didn't know how long they could hold it at that point because you don't really, you change the diaper, you check them. But, oh, yep, sure enough, it's wet again. But I have no idea. So I wait and about 30 minutes passes and I'm like, hey, she's probably, there's no way she can hold it 30 minutes. That's a long time for a 6-week-old. So she didn't have any other signs or cues or anything. And then about another 15 minutes passed. So we're 45 minutes down and I've got a little piece of paper and I'm taking notes because I'm observing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she starts squirming around on the, she's laying on her back and she's squirming and I'm like, oh dear, she must have to go. So I pick her up, I put her on the potty, I cue her to go and she goes again. So all day we did this. She went about every 45 minutes to 60 minutes, and she went about, I caught the first 13 P's. We didn't miss any all day long. It was like, wow.
That's crazy.
It was really.
It is.
Not like in a bad way. Like,
No, it's fascinating.
yeah,
it's fascinating. Wow.
Yeah, so that was my very first day, and after that I was hooked. It was like, wow, this is amazing. And she knows how to go, and we're communicating, and wow.
So this was your second child?
This was my second child. Yeah,
So
my
how
first
did-
daughter.
How did you find the experience different from then, like from your
my
first,
son?
Yeah,
So
who was more traditional.
with
potty
my
training.
son, when I decided that he was finally ready, and I don't know why I decided he was finally ready. I thought maybe, he's 2, he can walk around, he can get to the toilet. I guess he's ready to potty train. You put him on the toilet and he didn't know. He's like, okay, I'm sitting here. This is fun. Just like before when I was introducing him to the toilet so he wouldn't be afraid. But he had no idea what the expectation was. Okay, we're sitting on the toilet. Do I get to brush my teeth now? What do you want me to do?
Oh, look, I'll drink that water.
Yeah. And so he would play with the toilet paper roll and
Yeah.
he'd want to flush the toilet, but he had no idea that, you were supposed to eliminate in the toilet. And so the only way that I could figure out how to teach him that was to put him in underwear and then let him have an accident and say, oh, look, you peed yourself. Let's go to the potty. And so it took a while to get the connection that, oh, okay, I'm going pee. I've got to do this in the potty.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot different as opposed to...
Yeah, it was like an unlearning experience almost.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So how do other cultures, how do they potty train? I mean, is it alike elimination communication?
I can't speak to too many other cultures. I have been to India, and I did see a lot of the mothers. They tend to wear their babies or carry them,
Right.
and so you would see them just holding them off to the side, and they would just pee and then go about their
Where it
business.
goes,
Yeah, and that was it. And so, I mean, like I said, I don't have too much other experience, but I have
Yeah.
read in quite a few books that. Tribes that carry around their babies or mothers that are with them all the time. You would think third world countries because they don't have money to buy diapers and
Right.
that kind of thing. It just starts from birth, and they would sit them on the edge of their feet, and they would cue them to go or give them some sort of a,
Right.
this is, you're going to go potty now, and they would go. And so that's traditionally how, at least from my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's not something that I've thought about a lot, but as I was researching this topic and looking into more, that, yeah, the majority of the world doesn't use diapers.
Right.
And so they've got their babies are learning how to go to the bathroom. I mean, whether it's on a toilet or in the middle of the street, they're still, under control. And it's such a foreign idea to our American or Western culture. Diapers seem like a given. Like there's not, the choice is cloth or disposable. It's not
Right.
something else.
You might have 5 different disposable types, and now there's a umpteen amount of cloth types
Right.
also, but
Right.
yeah, and people used to think, oh, cloth diapers, we're going to use pins, and I'm scared to poke my baby, and I don't want to use cloth. So then it was like, okay, just disposables, we're going that route. But the disposables fill up the landfill, they've got chemicals in them, and in order to be more absorbent, and a lot of times the babies, they get rashes because their body doesn't tolerate the chemicals that are actually in the diapers. So parents are trying all these different brands, and they have no idea that it's an option to not use them.
So does elimination communication mean no diapers at all? Or are there times when you do use diapers?
It doesn't. There are times when you do use diapers, and it's not an all or nothing
Yeah, proposition.
proposition. It's an evolution also, because as I got more experience with pottying my first daughter, and then I had my next one, it was like you go through this shift of, well, if I can be more present, then there's no problem with reading their signs or communicating with them. But when you're distracted and you're wanting to type on the computer and you're trying to get work done and you got to do this and what am I cooking for dinner, all of a sudden you've missed a pee because you're not able to pay attention. And so
I tried a little bit with mostly probably my first son. And yeah, that was my experience because I was really busy and I loved the idea of it. But it was just like, if I missed one, it was just all over, right?
Yeah. So yeah, so I started originally with cloth diapers, and there's a number of different kinds of cloth diapers, but I started with the kind that are waterproof, and so you would be protected completely, and you wouldn't know if they peed unless you would actually check the diaper and it was wet. But eventually I shifted from cloth that was waterproof cover to cloth that was more absorbent than, say, just a regular underwear. So think like an extra pad in there to absorb the pee so it wouldn't go everywhere, but you could feel it immediately if they were wet or see it in their pants. And then eventually and it was hard to find small panties, but eventually I evolved to just getting panties for them. And my third daughter, she was in panties from the time she was about 4 months on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so I did find, and I used to, at first I would use pull-ups as a backup if I was going out. And then I used a waterproof seat cover for the car seat because, when you're traveling in the car and they're in the car seat, you're like, oh, I don't want to mess in the car seat. That's a pain in the behind to clean. You got to strip it all out. And so eventually, though, I would keep a potty in the car. I had the Baby Bjorn potties were only $10 at that point. I don't know what they run now, but they can't be more than $20. And I would keep a potty in the car. Each car had one. We had like multiple potties in the house. And then that way, whenever they had to go, there was a potty close by. And then eventually we worked towards getting them to the toilet in time. But that, after they're more mobile and whatnot.
Were you always with them, or did you have other people helping you?
I was always with them, and my partner did help a lot of times. And that was something that he found that was great because he was like, oh, I can help because I breastfed. And so he's like, well, I can't feed her. What am I going to do? Yeah. But he could potty her, and he would hold her on the potty, and they would have all sorts of, fun time talking and babbling and everything else. So that was another way that they could connect, which was great.
I feel like this makes so much sense on so many levels because we know our kids don't like to have waste on them, right? The moment they pee or poo or whatever, they want it off. They'll cry, usually, whatever. And so it just makes sense that that natural tendency to cry because we don't want it on us would lead to not just, going in a diaper, but wanting to get it as far away from you as possible. And so, I just think that sometimes they come with an innate feeling or, tendency to want to do something. And sometimes I feel like we put these barriers in front of them, and we're actually teaching them or unteaching them something that's innate to later try to teach them what they already knew.
Right.
That's kind of how I feel like this is.
Oh, this is fascinating as I expected, and yeah, it's let's pick up the conversation after the break. I've got a ton more questions. Thanks so much for explaining this, and yeah, I've got a ton more questions. All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we are talking about elimination communication with Elizabeth Stevens, a mom of 4, who with her last 3, how would you say that? Her
most recent kids?
Yeah, her most recent kids, her most recent 3, practiced elimination communication, and it worked. And it's really, really interesting. So we've talked a little bit about it in the first segment, but let's kind of crystallize, I guess, some of the benefits of elimination communication, either what you see or, generally speaking.
Sure. Some of the benefits are that, one, you don't have to untrain them to, I've seen many kids that were bigger that would hide in a corner because they had to go poop, or even I've potty trained traditionally because I ran a daycare. So I've worked with a lot of babies and preschool age and toddlers, and they would actually be in underwear and be fine. But if they had to have a bowel movement, they would request having the diaper because they were not comfortable enough not having it. And that's where
what they were used to.
Supposed to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's also that you don't have to unlearn something.
Right.
The other thing is that it just fosters a connection that you're going to respond to their needs. You respond to them when they're hungry, when they're crying, when they're tired. And so why not respond when they have to go to the bathroom too? So that's
yeah. And I thought it was really interesting how you mentioned how your husband felt this was something that he could do.
Right.
And take ownership of. It's something that did the older brother participate as well? He
did, actually. Everyone participated. And another benefit was that my daughter was basically able to sit up all on her own at about 4 months of age, which is typically they're about 6 months, give or take a few weeks, when they can sit on their own. But because she had been sitting up and had a lot of practice, apparently her core muscles were strong enough and she could actually sit on the potty by herself at 4 months.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that was a benefit too.
So how do nights work then?
So, like we said before, it's not an all or nothing proposition. Some people choose to completely ignore night times because they need their sleep or whatever. Sometimes the baby's not really going to allow you to ignore night times. But most of the time when they're sleeping, especially at night, I'm not sure that if the body chemicals change or how it exactly works when we're sleeping, but they don't have to go, and they can hold it for a good 6 to 7 hours even when they're super tiny.
Yeah.
And so they sleep, and then when they start to stir or cry, it's usually because they're hungry, and the first thing you do is offer them the potty, and then
you feed them.
And then you feed them. Yeah. And now sometimes they get really angry because they're like, I don't want a potty, I want to eat.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I had a potty bowl, and you can probably put those on your website or a link to a picture of the potty bowl, but it looks like a top hat basically. And so I would have the baby in my arms on my breast to feed, and I would put the potty bowl underneath their bottom.
So no
pants.
So you take off their
no
pants.
bottoms, exactly. Right. And then as soon as they got, a few swallows in,
they would usually go.
They would pop off the breast. And I don't know if you have a lot of your listeners have experience with breastfeeding, but a lot of times the baby will latch on, and then they will pop off, and they'll latch on and they'll pop off, and you're like, what is going on? It's typically because they have to pee.
Yeah.
And so that's another sign that they have to go potty. But so that was what I would do for nighttime or, first thing in the morning.
So you're talking about teaching them when they're very, very young. So is it ever too late to start?
That's a really good question. So what I've witnessed is that basically before the age of 4 months, you're pretty good as far as if you started at any point before then. 3 to 4 months, they start to do other things and they start to roll over. And so their attention changes. And I think that when they're working on learning new skills, it's like potty takes a backseat. So even from birth, if you've pottied them and then all of a sudden they start to learn how to roll over, it's like, okay, we got the potty thing down. We're going to work on rolling over. We're going to work on this new trick of reaching and grabbing something. And so what happens if you've never pottied them and then you're like at 6 months old, I just found out about this and I want to try this. Well, you've got a 6-month-old baby who wants to roll all around and wants to play, and they are not interested in sitting still. And then it becomes a little more difficult. Not that you can't do it, but it wouldn't be starting, with a newborn. And
did you also notice, though, that the ones that you started very young, that there was a certain point which maybe they were distracted too, and maybe it was a little harder for them to do the elimination?
Sure, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't always want to go.
Right.
And even when you get bigger kids, you're like, come on, let's go potty. They're like, no, we're playing.
Yeah.
Or they'll be so into playing, and you're like, they're usually really good about going to the bathroom, but they're so into what they're doing and they don't want to stop. They pee their pants. And you're like, what happened?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens even with babies that have been EC'd.
Are there certain babies that this just won't work for? I mean, certain types of babies, or maybe babies with challenges or anything like that?
I've never run across any that it hasn't worked for, and I've pottied a lot of other people's babies. The one thing I might say is that sometimes the babies don't like the potty because it's cold, and that gets them really aggravated.
Right.
So I understand.
You can, since I started, people have made, they call them potty turtlenecks or potty covers. And it's just a fleece.
Hopefully they're washable.
Yeah, they are washable. It's a piece of fleece that goes over the potty, and then that way when you sit them on it, they're not touching the cold plastic. And then the other thing that I tried, when there was a little boy who specifically just arched his back, did not want to sit on the potty whatsoever. So I would just hold him over the sink.
Yeah.
And that was the way that we worked around that. And then eventually he worked through whatever that deal was. He would sit on the potty. But.
Well, it is scary. I mean, if you think about it, your kids are small. I mean, especially when we're talking about babies, but even just regular potty training, like they could fall in.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be scared too.
Well, I feel like we've talked a lot about pee. What about the poop?
The poop.
Right?
So that's the big question, and that is the number one reason why elimination communication is really awesome, because you can miss pees. It's not a big deal. You wipe it up, you clean it up. But with poops, if you miss the poop, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a big giant mess. The thing about it is that it's a lot easier for a baby to hold the poop in and say, oh my gosh, I gotta poop. What's gonna happen? We gotta get to a toilet quickly. And it's so they're so good at communicating that they have to go poop, and I think that it's a lot easier for them to hold it in. That if you've used it from birth, you'll have very few poop accidents, really very few. It's usually the accidents you get with poop are because they've got diarrhea and they couldn't hold it and they had no idea. It snuck up on them kind of thing. Yeah. But for the most part, and that's the thing, is that when you practice this, most people are like, wow, it's so great because I don't ever miss a poop. I mean, I might miss pees, but we get the poops all the time. And plus, if the baby is regular, you're like, okay, well, they poop every morning, no big deal. You know, we're pooping every morning. Or
is there a poop sound that you make? Because you said psst.
No, it's the same cue.
It's the same cue?
Yeah, we don't cue any different. But sometimes I will say go poop, or, you know, let's go poop, because, you know, they're working on it. And another thing is that when they're really small babies, you can feel them straining when they're trying to poop. And so you can hold on to their belly and kind of give just a little firm push. And then that kind of helps them also. And the position that you put them in when you're holding their legs up, it's actually more natural to squat when you poop as opposed to sit on the toilet like we do. In India, they actually have like basically holes. The toilets are a hole. And then there's a place that you put your feet on either side. And so you squat to go to the restroom. But that biologically is more appropriate for our bodies. So it's a wonder that people get constipated here in the States because they got to sit on the toilet.
We're not squatting down far enough.
You're not squatting far enough, exactly.
I was just curious, do you find, because I know you've got a lot of experience potty training kids, even if they didn't start out doing EC, do you find that there's a difference between boys and girls as far as EC is concerned and their ability to do it or how fast they pick up on it?
I didn't really, if you've worked with them, I didn't really find any difference between the boys or the girls, other than when they get older, the boys seem to be more into what they're doing and not wanting to stop to go to the restroom, where the girls are like, okay, they're easier to convince, let's go give it a try.
They don't want to get it all over. The girls are like,
yeah. And so the boys, I've dealt with are more like, we want to play, we don't want to go potty. But the girls are more apt to be convinced really easily.
Yeah.
Where boys, I think, could be a little more challenging as far as that goes. But beyond that, there's really no different. I guess there's a learning curve when you're pottying boys because, you know, when they start to pee and it shoots a different direction.
That's right. Yeah.
You have to put your finger on top of their penis so that it points down.
Right.
Because sometimes it'll just shoot right up and then you've got pee everywhere. And you're like, woo.
Well, and I'm realizing as we're talking, there's so much focus on the elimination part of it when you hear this.
Yeah.
But you're really talking about you're communicating with these babies that are, you know, young. I mean, we talked to Joanne Woolley from Sign for Baby about, you know, the breakthrough of being able to use sign language to talk to kids. But this is your babies are communicating to you at a very young age.
Sure, they are communicating. I mean, they communicate from the time they're born. They start crying because they're uncomfortable. You know, they're in this world, like all of a sudden the temperature's changed, you know. They're hungry. They've got this feeling of hunger. Now they're crying. You know, they want comfort. They've started communicating right away. It just takes us a little while to figure out what they're trying to communicate and how they're trying to communicate.
The communication's working, I guess.
Exactly.
Is the trick.
So what if you're driving in traffic and do you do a diaper just prophylactic when you get in the car seat or something? Or
well, what I typically did was if I had to go somewhere, I would offer them the chance to go to the restroom, and then I would communicate, you know, this is your chance to go potty. We're going to have to drive here and it's going to take us a little while. And so most of the time they would at least give it a try. And sometimes they'd get, you know, 1 or 2 drops. Literally, they'd squeeze out 1 or 2 drops of pee, and that was it. And then we'd get in the car and we'd go. And we're not mostly going more than an hour to drive anywhere anyways. So I just kept the potty in the car. And then as soon as we stopped, like I'd go to the grocery store and I'd get out and I'd put the potty. I had a Durango at the time, so I'd put the potty in the back. I'd open the lid and I'd give them the chance to go again. And then usually we'd have to find a tree or somewhere to dump the pee when they would go. But for the most part, they also have like a plastic bag, like a portable potty that has a plastic bag in it that you can have them sit on. And then if they do poop, then you just tie it up and throw it away in a trash can. So you're not dealing with having to clean out a poopy, nasty mess. But I did actually run into an issue where we were on the freeway and my friend was traveling with me. So we had 3 girls in the car. They were all under the age of 2. And the 9-month-old had signed the potty sign, which is the ASL sign for tea. And then you shake it. It's toilet. And so she signed potty, and she's grunting, and we're trying, wait, don't go now. And we knew she had to go. And so we kept saying, okay, we're going to pull over as soon as we get to the next exit. And she's 9 months old, mind you. So you're like, do they really understand?
Yeah.
And she held it, and we pulled over, and it took us another couple miles, but we pulled over onto the side of the road. It was actually off the 15, and it was like a little trucker's, at Gopher Canyon Road, there's like a trucker stop. We pulled over there. I got out. We got her on the potty, and then she pooped, and it was like the best thing ever. She was so smiley. She was so happy.
That's so awesome.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. And so there are times like that where she's got to poop, and it's like, okay, we're going to make the effort to pull over off the side of the road because she's got to poop. I mean, how would you feel if you had to poop and somebody wouldn't stop for you to go, and you're like, hey, I got to go. So we try our best not to ignore them, but there's sometimes where you got to do what you got to do. And I just say, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't pull over right now, or we can't stop. I'm really sorry. If you can't hold it, it's okay. We'll clean you up right away as soon as we can stop. Mm-hmm. And that's it. So it's just about being respectful, to their little beings.
Well, and it just seems like so much of this is about being present and really tuning in to the baby. And it's sad that my mind goes to how hard that is for, I know, me personally a little bit, I'll admit, or for other parents that, it's easy to get distracted by other kids or other things that you're thinking about, or if you're, if there's something else going on.
Right.
But it is all about being present and being there and tuning into your kid. And that's really what it's all about.
Definitely.
All right. Well, that was fascinating. If our listeners have any more questions or thoughts about Elimination Communication, by all means, leave us a comment, get in touch with us, call our hotline. Elizabeth, I learned so much today. This was such an interesting topic. We're actually going to continue the conversation for a little bit for our members of our Parent Savers Club after the show. Elizabeth is going to tell us a little more about some good resources online that we can talk to about, that you can find more information about Elimination Communication. So for more information about that and the Parent Savers Club, visit our website, parentsavers.com. Now we have a listener comment from Rose. Rose writes, "Hey Parent Savers, I really enjoyed listening to your episode on only children. I'm actually a fraternal twin, and I also have 2 older brothers, so our home was always a busy place to be. It was great hearing from the perspective of your panelists who are only children on why they would or wouldn't choose to have an only child. We're currently pregnant with our first child, and we haven't decided if we're going to have a second. I'm sure things will work out either way." That wraps up the show for today. We appreciate you listening to Parent Savers. Don't forget to check out our sister show, Preggy Pals, for expecting parents, and our show, The Boob Group, for moms who breastfeed their babies. Next week, we're going to be talking about baby eczema. It's something that I know that we went through with our 3rd kid, and I wonder if it's related to any potty issues.
Perhaps, I guess it depends on where it is on the body, right?
All right, this is Parent Savers, empowering new parents.
This has been a New Mommy Media production. The information and material contained in this episode are presented for educational purposes only. Statements and opinions expressed in this episode are not necessarily those of New Mommy Media and should not be considered facts. While such information and materials are believed to be accurate, it is not intended to replace or substitute for professional medical advice or care, and should not be used for diagnosing or treating healthcare problem or disease or prescribing any medication. If you have questions or concerns regarding your physical or mental health or the health of your baby, please seek assistance from a qualified healthcare provider.
Hey mamas, don't forget to check out Mighty Moms. It's our online community built for new moms just like you. Not only can you connect with other moms, but you can also join us backstage for special mom-only online events. And you'll also be notified when we're recording, so you can join us as a special guest. Visit our website, newmommymedia.com, and click on the Mighty Moms banner. It's free. That's newmommymedia.com. See you there.